he did the opposite,
Yeah.
which was to violently kill her with an axe. When we got to the dining room, we saw my mom's body lying there, lifeless, and that room was full of blood. My grandmom was not well. In fact, she was not approving that I should go to university.
Welcome to the Safe Space Chats podcast with Madam Speaker. My name is Perseverance Maremeni, also known as Madam Speaker, also known as the CEO of Self Love. If you're joining for the first time, welcome to the family of healing, self-love, and motivation. And if you're returning, thank you so much for the continuous love and support that you are showing us. We are recording at number 7 Cedric Road in Istanbul. So if you want to come through, maybe you have your own podcast or something going on, you're more than welcome to hit us up on the number that's appearing on your screen right now. And also if you want to come through as a guest, Vazalwan, it's very important. There is a number specifically for you to reach out to us if you want to be a guest on our podcast. Anyway, without any further ado, I've got a guest next to me. Our guest is going to introduce himself and we'll go straight into the episode of today. My brother.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for having me. I am Keatlegile Mabena. I am an award-winning and a best-selling author of a book titled Breaking the Chains. And I'm also a philanthropist. I'm a lecturer. And I'm also a motivational speaker. I'm deeply passionate about self-discovery, mental health, resilience, and healing. So those are the topics that are very near and dear to my heart.
Sure. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You are doing so. I feel robbed because I haven't seen you in one of these TikTok challenges with the teacher or the lecturer and their kids, you know. I hope I'll see you soon.
Yeah, it's because I'm teaching online. So,
Is it?
Yeah, I'm lecturing
okay.
at UNISA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, no, it's you're doing so well.
Thank you very
Especially with the book and all that stuff. You know, I still have a pending book. Jesus Christ, give me strength because I need to also be a best-selling author like you. So I'm so inspired.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but anyway, you wrote to Felicity. Felicity is here with us today, Vazalwane, by the way. And you said that there's a story that you wanted to share with us.
Yes.
So you can just go straight into the story.
Yeah, my story is the story of how I turned my pain into purpose. So the events that led to this day, very traumatic. At the age of 15 years, I lost my mom. And my mom was lost at the hands of somebody who claimed to love her. And that was her boyfriend. And I still remember this story very vividly. And what pains me a lot is that the very same person who was supposed to protect her, he did the opposite, which was to violently kill her with an axe.
Sure.
And it was on the 29th of September 2010. My sister and I had went to a barber shop, and on the very same day, ke letsatsi le leng gore ne re kapile my mom to the bus stop.
Okay.
And it was because they were due for court on that day. And I still remember the words that my mom said to my sister and I. "A re bolela gore, I love you truly and deeply." We came back from Khokera Muriri. And when we came back, I remember we felt so hopeful and happy because as young as we were, we thought on that day, this cruel man was going to be behind bars.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you there. I just wanted to find out, Hori, because you're saying Hori, she was going for a court date on
Yes.
that day. What was the court for?
It was because the guy had breached the protection order.
Okay.
Yes. So when we came back, Harifitla, we were living go Shakung, a village go Bokone Bupirima, Northwest Province. And Koma Haing the gate o kono go e bofa ka terata. So when we came back, because of we know how gate e tlhola e bofilwe ka teng. Then we saw her, no, there's something off about the way e leng gore gate e ne e bofilwe ka teng. Then we got in, and as we walked into the house, right next to, just by the door, we saw an egg full of blood. And we also saw a key holder in a lemad. And immediately when we saw that eggs, then the denial started to kick in. We didn't want to believe what could be the possibility. And at that time, because we were so overwhelmed by emotions, and at that time, na go na le dikgogo. And what I thought of, maybe they used an eggs today, which is unusual, that they would use an eggs go bolaya kgogo. And we got into the house, Nale, my sister was 9 years old. We screamed, we cried, we searched for my mom. From one room to the next, it was a 5-roomed house. We went from one room to the next, and we got to the main bedroom. We saw Diabarotsena Diapere in the morning. And at that moment, we became hopeful to say, this is a sign that my mom is in the house. And I still remember that dress. It's the one that we chose, my sister and I, in the morning. And I'm like, okay, today, this is what you were going to wear. That's how close we were, as thick as thieves. And as we were caught up in that moment of being hopeful for my mom, we remember that there's only one room that we haven't searched, and that was the dining room. When we got to the dining room, we saw my mom's body lying there, lifeless, and that room was full of blood. The carpet was stained. The cupboard was soaked with blood. We screamed, and we went out of the house, and we were crying. The way in which we cried, how loud we cried, our neighbors were able to hear that cry. And the houses are scattered. So that's how loud and piercing that cry was. And after that, the neighbors, they came, and one of the neighbors, the numbers to my aunt. And they came, they took us out of the scene, Barisa to their other house, one of the neighbors. And I still remember what we only saw were the sirens and the lights outside. And because we were young, they were trying to give us hope that your mom will ambulance, she's going to be fine. But there was something inside of me that told me the way I saw my mom cold and lifeless, there is no way, irrespective of how much you want to convince me that my mom will come back. And I think in the early hours, they have cleared the scene. They took us back home. And that night, my sister and I couldn't sleep because the police came, but they told us, after searching, they told us they couldn't find the boyfriend. So that's how unsettling it was to say, we are so fearful that maybe this person might come back and finish us off. And in my mind at that time, all my family members are here. And if he is to come back, he will have that to finish us off. And then I wouldn't want to imagine other family members who were not there, who will have to bear the pain of having to lose multiple family family members until letsatsi le tlhaba the next day. And ga letsatsi le tlhaba, we saw the boyfriend coming at our home. And at that time, I stormed out of the main bedroom because I could see her ka lefestere. And I went outside and my blood was boiling, but I didn't know what is it that I wanted to say to her. And because of Baholo, they saw me, they followed me. And I went to the toilet, I came back, and then Bambuseza Kukamoreng, and then Habafedza, they had a meeting more. Then they came to us, my sister Barbara Hore. I saw this perpetrator, Keatlegile to report that the perpetrator has hanged himself.
Sure.
And that made me more angry because I felt that he owed me answers. And in my heart and my mind, I was thinking to myself, how dare you kill my mom? You know how my mom was our source of comfort. You knew how my mom was our rock. You knew how we loved each other truly, deeply, and dearly. And I felt he took a cowardly way of exiting this world without having to give me the answers to the questions that I had. And since that day, our lives never became the same.
You know, still on the issue of him taking the easy way out, I don't encourage suicide, but I feel like he could have easily just hung himself and left your mom, you know, to continue with life with you guys.
Yeah.
Why did he have to take her life before he takes his own life and do this cowardice thing that he did, you know? I'm so sorry for what you've been through as a young man, you know?
And just yesterday, I was thinking of the gender-based violence rates that we are experiencing in South Africa, and I was thinking to myself, why does it have to be as though women needs to beg us to leave as men? And the cruelty, the dark world that we are living in, and that is created by human beings. And my mom really tried to leave the abusive and toxic relationship. It was so unhealthy. And one thing that people should also be understanding, more especially when people say, leave that abusive relationship, that toxic relationship, is that there are people who are fearful that their exit will be that fatal. That when they try to exit, that's when somebody, like what that guy said to my mom, to say, if I cannot have you, nobody will. And how did we even get there as human beings, that we feel that we possess other people, that they don't have the opportunity to live on their own and choose what feels healthy to them.
Sure. That is the reality of our lives as women.
Yeah.
You know, we are living at the mercy of men, and that's just unfortunate. And this breaks my heart. You know, my anxiety is on 100 right now because of what is happening to women. Somebody said on one of the live sessions that I do on social media, she said that the society that we're living in as women, it's like having 15 guns in front of us and saying only one is loaded. Meaning that as a woman in South Africa, you don't know which gun is actually loaded, so you handle all of them the same because you don't know which one is going to actually let a bullet out. So meaning that that's how we fear men. We look at men as 15 guns, which we don't know which one is loaded because we don't know which one is actually safe and which one is not. So we have to treat them the same, you know?
Yeah.
That's just unfortunately the reality of our lives. But I just want us to, before we, because I really want you to share with our viewers at home how life now continued after your mom passing like that. But before we get to that, I just want you to tell us maybe if you remember, because obviously as a child, you can't have full details of how the relationship between your mom and her boyfriend was like. But from your observation as a child, from where the relationship started to when she wanted to end it, how was it like?
I would say the relationship, it was good at the beginning until he became comfortable to drink a lot. And when he started drinking, he started to raise a voice to my mom. And because we were brought up, we were raised in a family full of love. When my dad was still alive, so my mom and my dad were married, and my dad passed on in 2004 when I was doing grade 3. But I can still remember how they loved each other deeply and with so much of grace and devotion. And that's why when um, my mom's boyfriend came into our life, I was able to distinguish what love meant and what it is not. And when he came into our lives, and there were moments where he would want to raise a hand to my mom, I was able to pick up that this is not how we lived. We experienced love in its purest form. We experienced the love that was genuine, and then it later got unhealthy and toxic when this boyfriend started to be insecure. I remember one incident where my mom came back home. It was late, so while she was still at the taxi rank, she called as a courtesy of love. In relationships, communication is very important. So my mom called him to say, I'm running late. I'm in a taxi, and in a taxi, this man in a taxi, and that boyfriend had the voices of men in the background. And when my mom got home, it was a whole conflict because he was accusing her of dating many men, and my mom was trying to explain to say, at the time I called you, I was in a taxi. The voices that you had, they were of men who were in that taxi. And I think for me, I always felt that was a man who was cruel, but this cruelty was disguised in love. To say, I love you, I care about you, I want to protect you. And that's why I'm still questioning it to say, where did it change if it was that genuine? Because the genuine part of it cannot only be about the words, but even in action, it really needs to show, because you cannot be abusive to somebody that you claim you love.
Yeah. Sure. So that means that now when it got to her having a protection order and all that stuff, it's because she could see that the abuse was getting out of hand.
Yeah.
Meaning that your mom was trying to do the right thing to actually stay away from this person, not knowing that they've gotten to a point where they feel like they own her life.
Yeah, that's true. And I think she was now able to see that it is about to get physical. Because having to shout at somebody, accusing them, and having all those insecurities, it is an emotional abuse. And sometimes it becomes very difficult even when you try to talk to other people, more especially with emotional abuse, because there aren't any physical signs that you can show to that person. But there is no way that we can really minimize how painful or violent that can get. And I always say to people, one thing about the perpetrators, they are very nice to everybody, good to everybody, except the person that is being abused.
Absolutely. That's a narcissist.
Yeah.
That's how they behave. Okay, before we get to what I want us to get to life after your mom's tragic passing, there's somebody who is watching
Yeah.
at home right now, and they're in a relationship which is not functioning very well, and this is their second attempt or the third attempt. We get into relationships that we bring children. Let's say, for example, I'm coming out of a relationship. I've got 2 children, and now I introduce my children to this guy, and I say, this is the person that I'm dating who could potentially be an additional parent to the kids. And now this person is no longer treating me right. What do you say to somebody like that after having experienced your mom being loved and you guys being loved as a family by your dad, and then him passing, and then her trying to move on, which is, we all deserve companionship, right?
That's true.
She moved on, but that didn't work out, right? And she was trying to get out of that. What do you advise someone who's either a child of somebody who came out of a relationship that didn't work out? They're trying it again, it's not working out. With the pressure that comes with the fact that sometimes as a mother, I could say, I want to stay in this relationship because I don't want my kids seeing me hopping from one relationship to another and all that type of stereotype.
Yeah, I would say, firstly, listen to your kids, because sometimes you are not able to see it because you are in it. So it is very important that you also listen to those who are observers, who are witnessing it. You as a victim, try to make sure that you sit with your kids and you hear what their feelings are and what is sitting inside of them. And don't take that lightly. If they are saying that this is not how our dad treated you, this is not how love is supposed to be. The love, it needs to be that tender. The love needs to be that affectionate, and not only in words, but also in action. And after you have heard how they feel about that relationship that you are in, that is toxic, or unhealthy or violent, try to really seek help and pay attention to those red flags that they have mentioned to you. And if there is a need for you to seek professional advice, go for that. But what I've realized is that as much as there could be a protection order, but it is something that is written on paper. The police will not protect you 24/7, and that is the reality that is heartbreaking. That somebody can wake up tomorrow and breach that protection order, and now you are in their hands. And tomorrow, when people wake up, that person has unalived you.
Sure. Yeah.
I think there isn't any solid safety that you can get.
Yeah. That's why, with what is happening right now in our country, it's a matter of, we can never really say we have been cautious enough as women to stay safe. Something has to change in terms of men feeling like the owners. We are not some objects that are being owned. So I think the amount of work that needs to be done is not really on us armoring ourselves so that we can, because you can never be too protected, because even if you're wearing a bulletproof vest, you can still get shot at, So we just have to live in a space that is safe. But anyway, going back to the passing of your mom, it is the day of the funeral. Take me through that day.
Yeah, that day was very tough. On the day of the funeral, I think we were still trying to process what had happened. And culturally, she had to come in the morning. And then I still remember how Mula for us to see her for the last time. Her complexion had changed. And I want to believe it is because of the bleeding. Yeah, it still hurt like it was yesterday.
Sorry about that.
And on that day, we had to view her. Then Mabitleng. And before that, I think during the week, I was very concerned that my mom and her boyfriend were going to be buried on the same day. And maybe the possibilities that when we get to the graveyard, in fact, and how was that going to make me feel? And there can be two funerals at the same time, just at different side. But I got a relief because Koshaku in the village that we were living at, only two cemeteries, and they said the boyfriend was going to be buried at the other funeral, the other cemetery. Yes, rather. And yeah, on that day, it felt so surreal. We went Komabitling, we came back, and people were still there. I think Katzazila funeral, you feel the support and people's presence. It's only after the funeral that the actual funeral really starts.
Yeah.
Because now you are able to feel the absence of that person that you have lost. And then after funeral, we were left with my grandma. She's the one who took us in. May her soul rest in peace. She took us in. We were left with my grandmom. We stayed Kohai, Koshakun, for some months. And that's when we felt, yeah, this is real. My mom is normal. And we were also left my grandmother's cousin. We stayed Koshaku until in the Nakoyadi Tlobolo. After that, we moved to the neighboring village, Komilotsan. That's where my grandparents stayed. And yeah, it was a painful transition. And I always say, I prayed for my grandma more than I prayed for myself. Because I couldn't, even today, I cannot understand how my grandmom carried that pain. And having to think that my uncle was also shot. So I could imagine how that was cutting deep. And after the loss of my mom, my grandmom did all that she could to show us love. And not to even fill the vacuum, because there isn't anything that will ever substitute the mother's love. And at the time where I was holding on to my grandmom being my hope, I completed my matric, passed with flying colors. Even today, I'm still asking myself, how did that happen? But I understand that it is through God. God really strengthened me. In the midst of that storm, I was able to pass with distinctions. And when I was ready to start a beautiful and a life-changing and a life-giving journey of university, my first year, just before the classes started, because I got accepted at Northwest University Mafikeng campus. At the time when I left Care University, my grandmom was not well. In fact, she was not approving that I should go to university. And it's only later in the years that I understood what her reasons were. Because we were so close, and it felt that to her, the possibilities are, it felt to her that she was losing again. And maybe she was thinking to herself, the world is so cruel. The world is so dark. And when you are out there far from home, who's going to protect you? And I went to university. It was during the orientation period before the classes commenced. And during that week, I think it was 2 days, I arrived at Mafikeng. One morning when I woke up, I received the messages from my close friend sending me the condolences. And the only person that I thought of was my grandma. I remember that day, I did put on my sneakers. Remember at that time, I am new to Mafikeng. But I put on my sneakers and I ran. One thing that I remember about that day is that there was a time when I was running, I heard the sound of hooters. I heard hooters of the cars that were coming behind me. Then that's when I had to stop. Because that said to me, there is a chance that you would kill yourself. You're not in a good emotional and mental state. Go back to your place. Then I went back to my place. Then I received the call that I have to come back home. Then when I got home, I think my family thought I haven't yet received the news. Then they told me that my grandmom passed on. And I was thinking to myself, if there's one promise that I made to myself, was to bring the experiences that will bring happiness to my grandma. And that was me having to graduate and completing my degree so that my grandmom at least can have a break and take pride in my accomplishment. And unfortunately, death visited. And at the time, I never expected. And after my mom's passing, I thought I was so strong that I was not going to break again. And there were moments where I felt, Keatlegile, it is as if you're weak. You forgot the conversation that you had with yourself. That after going through this breaking moment, there isn't anything that will break you again. But yeah, my grandmom's passing really broke me into pieces. But later I realized that the reason as to why I broke again, it was because at the time my grandmom passed on, I was still healing. Because it was 4 years after my mom passed on in 2010. My grandmom passed on in 2014. I was still healing. And there is so much of grace that I had to give myself, be gentle to myself, and understand that healing takes time. And there are also wounds. There are also wounds that time cannot heal. Even now, the grief continues to be there because of the triggers.
Yes.
And today I was thinking to myself, my mom's absence is felt in everything. When I'm winning, it cuts so deep. Because I'm thinking of the moments where we sat down and we talked about our future, how beautiful and how better it will turn out.
Yeah.
Because having to come from unprivileged background, from a village, it becomes very difficult to really dream beyond the horizons. And having to have a mother who would say to you, "Nko ya kgomo mogala tshwara thata se re utlwa sebodu wa kgaoga." to give you that hope that things are going to turn better. Nothing ever stays the same. Seasons do change. It is such a privilege. And when I'm achieving things that I thought impossible, it is a trigger for me.
Yeah.
When life gets very tough, it becomes a trigger for me. Because there are those moments where I feel that if I was to go home, find my mom, I was going to get that space of comfort. And going home, going back to myself, without having to hear my mom saying, it's going to be okay. And that's what we long for. It's going to be okay. Not for somebody to say, I do have the solutions to the problems that you are having, but for them to hug you and assure you that it is going to be okay. And all that, it is in the past. But through the grieving process, I learned that my grieving has really changed throughout the years. I think in the past, the grief used to make me or remind me of what I've lost.
Yeah.
But currently, grieving is a gift and a wound to me because it reminds me of what I've lost. But it also reminds me of what I've been given, which is the love, the care, the support, and also the protection. And in all those situations, the trying and the tough times that we went through, what I appreciate the most is that we went through those harsh realities or moments with my mom when she was still alive. And I believe that's exactly what each and every child needs. I think sometimes we tend to think that the kids needs the present, but the kids needs the presence more than they need the present. So the most fulfilling thing is that even through those struggles and our surviving moments, we went through that with my mom. And my mom was love personified. I still remember how calming her spirit was. She will enter into a room and the love will spread in that room. The love will spread in that room. And I'm glad that that very same love that raised me, that very same love that shaped me, and the love that words cannot even fully capture, it is living on through me. I have become that embodiment of love.
Yeah.
To say, life has given me many chances and many thoughts to believe that it is the love that kills. But I had to sit in those moments and heal and feel and confront what my pain was for me to understand that there isn't any better definition of love that you will ever receive that is not that is not that which you have received from your parent.
Yeah.
What you have received from your parent, having to see them loving each other. I've never seen my dad raising a voice at my mom. Whatever issues that they might they may had in the family, surely they really resolved those issues in the bedroom. But what we always saw was love in the family, and we felt that warmth, and that is something that I still cherish till to this date.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a lot. And I think I can relate so much with what you're sharing, because when it comes to losing a mom and everything just being a trigger, whether it be it success, any change, good or bad, it's always a reminder. So I can attest to the fact that when you lose a parent, for me, there's no such thing as entirely healing.
Yeah.
I know that in most things that we go through as people, you can heal and have a scar and speak about it and all that stuff. I think in my own experience, losing a mom, you just get used to it. It's one of those wounds that you just need to know how to step properly without actually hurting yourself, but it's there, you know. And I think the reason why a lot of us struggle with it so much is because we don't entirely want to be honest with ourselves and say, listen, it hurts. And in as much as I'm not talking about it every day, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that there are no lessons that I'm learning from that, because they are there. But it's not a wound that you can say it will heal someday. After so many years, when you think about how the passing and the day of the funeral and all that stuff, it's just something that you don't want to wish it on anyone. It can either go, it's both ways. It's either when you face something like that, you may want other people to feel pain, thinking that it's going to make you feel better. Or you may have so much compassionate in your heart that you don't want to see anybody suffering the way you have suffered, and you try your level best to try and educate other people and share your pain so that people can relate, can be comforted by the fact that they're not alone. What they're feeling is not new. It's not something that people don't live with, because so many of us actually do live with that. And I just want to say thank you so much for being able to open up to share your version or your interpretation of how it's like to know love, to have the love being taken from you, and to still learn how to love, and be kind and compassionate and be generous enough to share with other people. Or you can still live. There is life beyond losing a parent in that painful way. There is life even after knowing love. You can still, you can still impersonate that love, that you've seen growing up. Just because you saw it briefly or you experienced it briefly doesn't say, Hori, you must be angry at the world for not experiencing it fully. It just says, Hori, the little that you know of it, you must amplify that.
Absolutely. And I think as much as it can be so excruciating, it also, the pain also shapes us to become better people. Like you were saying, I'm one person who's very kind in their thoughts, very kind in their words, and also very kind in their conduct. And I understand that people are going through a lot, be it emotional and mental battles. And it takes one to hold space for people and tell them that you are seen and your feelings are valid. And you must understand that you need to feel it to heal it. There is no way of escaping from your pain because it has a way of catching up with you. So you cannot run as fast as pain can catch you. And the most painful thing about pain is that it becomes very excruciating when you have to relieve that moment. And for me, having to go back to that day, how it happened, who did it, and why they did it, which is sometimes, in fact, for me, it is an answer that I will never receive. And it is through this healing process that I've learned about forgiveness. For some time, I thought the anger that was inside of me, which have softened over time, I thought holding on to the anger, it says, or it tells a story of how much my mom's life meant to me. But later I realized that holding on to the pain, it is a poison to me. And that's one thing that many people are not realizing, that holding on to the anger is not that you are punishing that person who did the bad to you, but you are poisoning yourself. And you need to get to a point where you are releasing yourself from that which has broken you. And releasing it doesn't mean forgetting, but it says that you are setting yourself free, and you understand that you deserve the forgiveness more than the person that has done you wrong. So those are some of the lessons that this journey has taught me, to say that you need to forgive. And over again, you get to discover who you are in this pain, and choose who you want to be. And it's okay for people to stay in their pain, but not stay forever. Because if you are to stay forever, it means that it is somehow going to shape or determine what your destiny will be.
And just to add on to what you're saying, I feel like if you dwell in bitterness and anger, you're as good as dead.
Yeah.
You're as good as dead, because what quality of life is that where you're going to live a life that does not even have a value because you're always angry? But anyway, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I believe that it's going to touch lives and give hope to somebody out there where they feel like an injustice has been done to them, and they will never ever get the closure that they think they deserve. So how do you live? How do you move forward without getting the closure that you in your head you are thinking, this is the type of closure that I have? Like you said, Hori, you were hoping that you would get answers from that guy, and when you found out that he actually hung himself, you had to live with the fact that you will never ever get answers from him.
And I think having to speak about closure, I think a month ago, I realized that irrespective of the fact that you might be thinking that you didn't deserve it, yes, you didn't deserve it. But the closure that we are always seeking from other people, it is the closure that we need to give to ourselves.
Yes.
Because there are moments where people are not going to feel that they have done you wrong. And that closure that you give yourself, it is the one that is going to help you to go beyond what your potential is. Because one thing about pain, it holds you back to an extent that even your potential become dimmed. And on the other side, if you are able to allow it to do its work, to take its course, and you end up becoming the light. And that is why when I was writing my book titled Breaking the Chains, the imprisoned, bailing out the imprisoned potential, power and persistent. At the time I was writing that book, it was a way for me to say to people, this is going to be your roadmap and your guideline to rise above your emotional, be it spiritual or your mental battles. All I wanted to say to people or to express through that book was to tell a story of how one can still rise, irrespective of the downhill that they experienced. To say that most of the time, the wound, it is the place where light enters you. And it is through those painful moments that you are able to say to somebody, I have done it, you can also do it. And to be in the front line of taking people by hand to say, this is how I was able to rise above the pain, even though I was broken, but I was able to become.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you so much. So where do the people, in closing, where do the people get the book? Where do the people get a hold of you?
To get hold of the book, you get it directly from me on WhatsApp. My WhatsApp details is 062 172 6790. And alternatively, I am Keatlegile Mabena on Facebook and Instagram. So you can send me a DM, then I will make sure that the copy gets to you.
Okay. No, thank you so much. Is there anything else that we're leaving out in closing? We're good.
Yeah, we are good. The last message that I would want to leave people with is that pain is a circumstance, but healing is a choice.
Amen. A big amen to that.
Amen and amen.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming to share. I feel like I am going to sit and enjoy this episode like I'm not even here, in the interview, because I feel like there are parts of stuff that you've shared here that speak to me directly, that I will need to watch this episode also sitting in my corner and doing my introspection, and taking my scafftin, So I really, really appreciate you. And I believe that the people who are watching this at home as well are going to learn a lot. And I encourage, Abazalwan, please, I encourage you to get the book for yourself, because, and I believe healing is a journey that is not linear. It's custom made. Healing is custom made, but we always use all these tools that are available. So I strongly, strongly encourage healing, and I suggest that whatever wound, whatever that you are sitting on top of that's hurting you, it's not going to go anywhere until you get up and you say, I'm going to use the tools that we have made available to you guys so that you can use them to heal, so that you can live a life that is a fulfilled life. So please do get yourself a book and leave a comment down below and tell us what you think about this episode of today and what you are learning from it. With that being said, thank you so much for joining in. I shall see you guys on the flip side. I love you. God bless you. Mwah.